For my influencer, I decided to choose Henry VIII. While I wouldn't go so far as to say Henry VIII had a positive impact on my life or is someone I personally look up to, I will argue his influence at the time is worth talking about and is overall very fascinating to me. Additionally, what makes him stand out from all the other influencers I saw on the list is it's just a reflection of how one person's decision can just influence an entire nation and change the course of history in ways that we still feel today. So I think that's very interesting, which is why I'm going to talk about him. So let's get into it. So let's start at the beginning with his early life and also diving into a little bit of his family history. Henry VIII, otherwise known as Henry Tudor, was born June 28th, a day before my birthday, coincidentally, 1491 in Greenwich Palace, London, England. So as we can see in these first few sentences, he was born into privilege. And this is further confirmed by the fact that he was the second son of King Henry VII and Elizabeth York. His father had won the throne through a vigorous civil war between the houses of Lancaster and York. This was later known as the Battle of Bosworth. Not super important. However, their marriage effectively united these rival houses. So, yay! No more fighting. As mentioned briefly, he was not an only child, surprisingly. He actually had many siblings. However, given the time, not a lot of them made it to adulthood. However, some of them did, including his older brother Arthur and his two sisters Margaret and Mary. Moving on to his education and achievements, Henry VIII actually didn't attend any formal education institutions, like he didn't go to college or university, or actually any public schooling throughout his lifetime. Essentially, he was just homeschooled. But this did not hold him back, though, because he was quite intelligent for a royal prince in that era. And this is mainly due to the fact that he was educated by some of the most respected scholars in England. His curriculum included things like theology, philosophy, history, music, literature, etc., and even a handful of languages like Latin, Greek, French, and Spanish. Not only was he brain smart, he was actually very physical. Surprisingly. He partook in activities like archery, hunting, wrestling, and jousting, which at the time were essentials for a king. Of course. As for his career achievements, Henry VIII's most impactful decision was to break free from the Roman Catholic Church and establish the Church of England in 1534. This is now known as the English Reformation, and it changed the religious landscape of England forever, for all time. Now on to my favorite segment of my research, interesting facts. Now, this man was a very controversial figure in history, and he does not live that title down because he, in fact, did have a very interesting life. So it was really difficult for me to just pick two facts. However, I did settle on two. The first one, I probably don't even have to tell you, but he is most famous for having 6 wives. 6 wives throughout his entire lifespan. His marital troubles became so infamous, it led to a popular rhyme. Quote, "Divorced, beheaded, died. Divorced, beheaded, survived." End quote. Let that sink in. Okay. The next fact, Henry VIII was also notable for his harsh punishments. He was estimated to have executed over 70,000 people during his reign, including 2 of his wives. Okay. And many political opponents. So I don't think you'd want to get on his bad side. Last but not least, his influence and legacy. Henry VIII died on January 28, 1547 at Whitehall Palace in London, England. So he was born in a palace and he died in a palace. And I think that summarizes who he was as a person very well. He was 55 years old, which I think is extremely young to be dying. So there's that. As a historical figure, however, Henry VIII doesn't have a current residence because he died like a billion years ago. However, he was buried in St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle, alongside his third wife, Jane Seymour, which ended up having his only male heir. So I think that was his favorite wife. Today, Henry VIII remains a subject of fascination in books, films, and documentaries. His life is often studied as a symbol of absolute monarchy, personal ambition, and the dramatic consequences of unchecked power. So, there you have it.